The city hummed like it always did, impatient, indifferent, alive. I moved through the crowd with my head down, one hand clutching my coffee, the other gripping my tote bag as if it could keep my life from spilling apart. Rain had turned the sidewalks into slick mirrors, reflecting neon lights and restless feet. I wasn't watching where I was going when it happened, a solid shoulder, the sudden loss of balance, and then the shock of strong hands catching me before I hit the ground. "I'm so sorry," I blurted, coffee splashing down the front of my coat. "I wasn't. It's fine." His voice was low, controlled, carrying an edge of authority that made me look up. And that's when the world seemed to stutter. The man towering over me wasn't someone you could mistake for ordinary. Tall, broad-shouldered, immaculately dressed in a dark wool coat that looked custom-made, he had the kind of presence that made the chaos around him fade. His eyes, dark, unreadable, locked onto mine with a focus that made my heart skip. For a split second, I forgot the city, the cold, even the embarrassment. Then he smiled. Barely. The corner of his mouth lifted like an afterthought. "You should watch where you're going," he said. Not unkindly. Almost amused. Yeah. Sorry again." My voice sounded small. I straightened, brushing at my coat, trying to hide the tremor in my hands. He glanced down at the spreading coffee stain, then at the cup crushed between us. "Let me replace that," he said, already gesturing toward the cafe behind me. "Oh no, you don't have to." But he was already moving, holding the door open with an ease that suggested he wasn't used to hearing no. I hesitated for a heartbeat, something in me warning that this man wasn't the kind of stranger you followed. And yet, curiosity, and maybe something else, pulled me inside. The cafe was warm, the scent of espresso and sugar wrapping around us. He ordered for both of us without asking what I wanted, and somehow I didn't protest. 2 vanilla lattes, he told the barista, his tone smooth but final. "And a towel if you have one." He handed me the towel when it came, his fingers brushing mine. There was a strange kind of electricity in that fleeting contact, the kind that shouldn't have existed between two strangers. "You don't seem like the type to rush," he said after a moment, studying me as I dabbed at my coat. "I'm late for work," I replied. "What do you do?" "Marketing assistant. Corporate office. Nothing exciting." He tilted his head slightly, as if amused by my attempt to make myself sound ordinary. "And yet, here you are, spilling coffee on strangers before 9 a.m. You must have an interesting life." I laughed, more nervous than amused. "If you call overdue rent and caffeine dependence interesting." That earned me another flicker of a smile. "You're honest." I like that. Something about the way he said it, measured, deliberate, made my stomach tighten. I took a sip of the latte the barista placed in front of me, using the cup as a shield. "You still haven't told me your name," I said carefully. His gaze didn't waver. "Marco." Just that. No last name. But the way he said it made it sound like it was enough. "Elena," I said after a pause. "Nice to meet you." Again. He nodded slowly. "Elena." He repeated it as if testing how it sounded on his tongue. "You should be more careful, Elena. The city's not always kind to people who aren't paying attention." The words should have sounded like casual advice, but something in his tone hinted at a deeper warning. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, his expression hardening for the briefest moment. Then he looked back at me, the smile returning like a mask sliding into place. "Excuse me," he said, stepping aside to answer. I turned away, pretending not to listen, but his voice, low and edged with authority, carried easily over the cafe noise. I caught fragments. "Handle it quietly, no police. Make sure he understands." Something in my chest tightened. Whatever business this man was in, it wasn't corporate. When he returned, the shift in him was subtle but unmistakable. "Sorry," he said smoothly. "Work never stops." "No problem," I replied, forcing a smile that felt brittle. He studied me for a moment, as if deciding something. "You live nearby?" The question made me hesitate. "Queens," I said finally. He nodded thoughtfully. "Good. Stay alert on your way home tonight." Before I could ask why, he placed a business card on the table. No logo, no company name, just a number. "If you ever need help, call me." "Help with what?" I asked, half joking. He held my gaze, his expression unreadable. Anything. Then, before I could respond, he was gone out into the rain, coat collar turned up, swallowed by the crowd as if he'd never been there. I stared at the card for a long time after he left. The number gleamed faintly under the cafe lights, embossed in silver. No name, just a contact that felt more like a promise or a warning. I should have thrown it away right then. Instead, I slipped it into my bag. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Maybe it was the echo of his words, the city's not always kind, or maybe it was the faint sense that something had shifted, that my life had brushed against something dangerous and unseen. When I reached my apartment, the street felt quieter than usual, like the city was holding its breath. I glanced over my shoulder once, twice, but saw nothing. Still, as I turned my key in the lock, I thought I caught the silhouette of a man standing under a streetlight across the road. Tall, still, hands in his pockets. Watching. My pulse quickened. But when I blinked, he was gone. I told myself I was imagining it. I told myself it was just a coincidence. But deep down, I knew better. That morning, I'd bumped into a stranger. That night, the stranger wasn't a stranger anymore. He was a shadow that had started following me. And somehow, I wasn't sure if I wanted him to stop. The rain hadn't stopped. It drummed against my window all night, a restless rhythm that matched the beating of my heart. Sleep came in fragments, half dreams of dark eyes and quiet warnings. When my alarm finally rang, I felt like I'd run a marathon in my own mind. At work, I tried to shake it off. Emails, phone calls, presentations, the usual noise of corporate life. But every time I glanced toward the windows overlooking Lexington Avenue, I thought I saw him again. Or someone like him, men in dark coats standing just long enough to make me doubt myself. By late afternoon, nerves had replaced caffeine as my fuel. When I finally stepped outside, the city air smelled of rain and exhaust. The sidewalk glistened beneath streetlights. I told myself to stop being paranoid. Then I saw it, a black sedan idling across the street, engine running, windows tinted. The same car I'd noticed near my building last night. I froze. Coincidence, maybe. But when the light changed and I crossed, the car moved too, slow, deliberate, always a few paces behind. I ducked into the nearest bodega, pretending to browse shelves of instant noodles. My reflection in the cooler door looked pale, wide-eyed. I pulled Marco's card from my bag. The number gleamed faintly, daring me to call. I almost laughed at myself. Call a stranger because you think you're being followed? A stranger whose work involved sentences like, handle it quietly? Still, fear overruled logic. I dialed. He answered on the second ring. Elena. Just my name, spoken like he'd been expecting me. I think someone's following me, I said quietly. Where are you? A corner store on 43rd, near the subway entrance. Stay inside, he ordered. Don't move. The line went dead. My stomach twisted. What had I done? But before panic could fully bloom, the bell above the door jingled. Marco stepped in, rain slicking his hair, his coat open over a dark suit. He shouldn't have been able to get here that fast. You shouldn't be out alone tonight, he said. I didn't plan to be. I gestured helplessly toward the street. There was a car. I know. He nodded to someone outside. A man in a similar coat moved past the window, speaking into a discreet earpiece. They're gone now. Gone. 2 men, hired to watch you. Not by me. His tone sharpened. They work for someone who thinks you might have seen something yesterday. Seen what? I was just walking. Exactly. His eyes held mine. You crossed paths with me after a meeting. That meeting ended badly for someone. There are people who assume you might have noticed details they can't afford to be noticed. My pulse thudded in my throat. So I'm in danger because I spilled coffee on you? A ghost of a smile flickered across his lips. It's rarely that simple. But yes, in a way. He handed me an umbrella, black, expensive, clearly not from the bodega rack. Come with me. I'll get you home safely. Every rational part of me screamed no. But standing alone under the harsh store lights, the alternative, stepping back into the rain with unseen eyes watching, felt worse. Outside, the sedan was gone. Another car waited at the curb, sleeker, quieter. A driver stepped out, opened the rear door, and said nothing. I slid in beside Marco, heart racing. The city blurred past in a smear of neon and glass. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You should have called me sooner." I didn't think. That's the problem. You didn't. His tone softened. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sound harsh. I just don't like the idea of you being frightened. Something inside me shifted at the sincerity in his voice. Who are you really? I asked. He was silent for a moment, watching raindrops crawl down the window. Someone who owes too many debts to the wrong kind of people, he said finally. Someone is trying to make sure you don't pay for one of them. It wasn't an answer, but it was enough to quiet my fear. For now. When the car stopped in front of my apartment, two men stepped from a nearby vehicle. They scanned the street before giving a short nod to Marco. Who are they? I whispered. My people. They'll keep watch tonight. Outside my building? Yes. Discreetly. He met my eyes. Don't be alarmed if you see them again. They're there to protect you. Protection. The word sounded both comforting and terrifying. I don't understand why you're doing this, I said. He exhaled slowly, as if weighing how much truth to give me. Because someone put you on a list, Elena. I saw your name. And because he stopped himself, the rest of the sentence swallowed by the sound of passing traffic. Just trust me for now. He reached into his coat, pulling out a small metal charm shaped like a rose. Keep this with you. It's a tracker linked to my phone. If anything happens, press the center. I hesitated before taking it. You make it sound like we're in a spy movie. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I wish we were. He walked me to the entrance, the streetlights casting twin halos on the wet pavement. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The air between us buzzed with unspoken questions. Good night, Marco, I said finally. Good night, Elena. His gaze lingered a moment too long. Lock your doors. Inside, I leaned against the closed door, exhaling shakily. The apartment felt too quiet, too small to contain the storm of adrenaline still coursing through me. I moved to the window and pulled the curtain aside. Across the street, two men stood beneath a flickering street lamp, silhouettes against the mist. One raised a hand to his earpiece, murmured something I couldn't hear. The other looked up directly at my window and nodded once, an acknowledgement, a silent promise. It should have unsettled me. Instead, I felt safe. That night, I placed the rose charm on my nightstand. It caught the moonlight tiny and cold. Maybe tomorrow all this would make sense. Maybe the shadows outside would disappear, and the city would go back to being just a city. But deep down, I knew better. I had stepped into something vast and dangerous, something that pulsed beneath the surface of ordinary life. And the man who'd caught me on a rainy sidewalk wasn't just a stranger anymore. He was a secret that had chosen me. And whether I liked it or not, I was already part of his world. The next morning, the world looked ordinary again, too ordinary. Sunlight spilled through the blinds, catching the rose-shaped tracker on my nightstand. It glittered like a warning. I told myself that last night had been a blur of paranoia and rain, that no one would still be outside. But when I drew the curtain back, the same two men stood by the streetlight. Different posture, same suits, same stillness. Watching. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marco, you're awake. Good. I stared at the message, half tempted to throw the phone across the room. How did he know? Elena, you have cameras in my building or something? Marco, no. You have a habit of opening your curtains at 8:03 a.m. I blinked. He wasn't joking. Elena, do you always keep track of people like this? A pause. Then, Marco, only the ones who might be in danger. A chill moved through me, equal parts fear and something I couldn't name. At work, concentration was impossible. I kept checking my messages, expecting another text that never came. By lunch, the normal rhythm of office chatter felt foreign, like I'd stepped out of my own life and couldn't find the doorway back. Around 2, the receptionist buzzed my extension. Elena, there's a delivery for you. I frowned. From who? Didn't say. Just left it at the desk. The package was small, wrapped in brown paper, with no return address. Inside lay a single white tulip and a card embossed with silver lettering, "Stay where the light is strongest." No signature. I knew who it was from. After work, I decided to walk instead of taking the subway. The evening air smelled faintly of rain again, a mix of metallic and sweet notes. I told myself I was just clearing my head, not scanning every reflection for shadowed figures. Halfway down Lexington, a group of men stepped from an alley, 3 of them, rough clothes, hard eyes. One brushed too close, murmuring something I couldn't catch. I sped up. Another laughed low behind me. Then a car engine growled at the curb. The black sedan again, but this time the door swung open. Marco stepped out. He didn't shout or run, he simply looked at the men. Whatever they saw in that look made them scatter without a word. The street swallowed them. Coincidence? I asked, my voice shaking. Not tonight. He opened the car door. Please. Inside, the air smelled faintly of leather and rain. He waited until the city noise faded behind us before speaking. They weren't after you. They were sending a message to me. Because of what you do? Because of who I am, he corrected quietly. And because of who you were standing next to last night. I studied his profile in the passing light, sharp lines, unreadable eyes. Then tell me who you are. For the first time, he looked uncertain. If I tell you, you'll wish you didn't know. I already wish that, I said. So go ahead. He hesitated, then, my family built things in this city, businesses, contracts, influence. Not all of it is clean. When I took over, I tried to change that. Some people saw it as betrayal. Others saw opportunity. Mafia? I asked softly. His jaw tightened. That word belongs to movies. But yes, something like that. I let out a shaky breath. And now I'm in the middle of it. Through no fault of your own, he said. Which makes it my responsibility. The sincerity in his voice unsettled me more than the danger itself. You don't even know me. I know enough. His eyes met mine, steady and impossibly calm. You walked into my world and didn't flinch. That says something. I wanted to argue, but his gaze held me there, suspended between sense and surrender. The car slowed in front of my building again. Before I could reach for the handle, he caught my wrist, not hard, just enough to make me look at him. Come to dinner tomorrow, he said. Somewhere public. I owe you a proper explanation. I hesitated. Dinner? After all this. I promise no surprises. Just conversation. The words shouldn't have sounded like a promise. They sounded like temptation. I nodded before I could think better of it. That night, the men under the streetlight were gone, replaced by a single unmarked car parked half a block away. I told myself it was safer that way. Sleep was slower to come. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Marco, his steady gaze, the way he'd stepped between me and danger without hesitation. Part of me wanted to believe his world could stay at a distance. The rest of me knew it was already bleeding into mine. The next evening, I chose my outfit carefully, something simple, neither too formal for a date nor too casual for fear. When I reached the restaurant he'd named, a quiet Italian place tucked between mirrored towers, he was already there, standing to greet me. You came, he said, as if he hadn't been sure I would. I had questions. And I have answers. The waiter led us to a table near the back of the restaurant. Candles flickered in crystal holders, their reflections dancing on the walls. For a while, we spoke of ordinary things: coffee, rain, the city's noise. It felt disarmingly normal until his phone buzzed again. He ignored it. You can answer, I said. I'd rather not. Your job sounds demanding. My life is demanding. My job just keeps it from collapsing. The honesty in that sentence made me ache unexpectedly. So why bother with me then? You don't even have time for your own life. His eyes softened. Because the moment you crashed into me, something changed. I don't pretend to understand it, but I'm not the kind of man who ignores instinct. I stared at him, unsure whether to be flattered or afraid. Instinct can be wrong. Sometimes. But not this time. The words hung between us, fragile and dangerous. I should have changed the subject, but before I could, the waiter returned with a note instead of dessert. Marco unfolded it silently. His expression went still. What is it? I asked. He slid the paper toward me. 3 words, scrawled in black ink. She's not safe. He folded it again before anyone else could see. We're leaving, he said softly. My pulse raced. Is it? Not here. Not now. He stood, every movement precise, calm. Stay close to me. As we stepped into the night, the city noise felt sharper, colder. A black SUV pulled from the curb, headlights cutting through the mist. For a moment, I saw the driver's face, a pale scar down one cheek, eyes that lingered too long. Marco's hand found mine. Don't look back. And I didn't. We didn't stop until we reached the parking garage beneath his office building, if it even was an office building. From the street, it looked like any other glass tower, but the moment the elevator doors closed behind us, the air changed. Quieter. Denser. Every surface gleamed. Marco pressed the button marked P3, and the elevator began to descend. My pulse followed it downward. Who sent that note? I asked finally. I'm still finding out, he said. But whoever did knew where we'd be. That means a leak. A leak. In my business, information is the most expensive currency. Someone sold yours. Mine? He glanced at me. You're the easiest way to reach me right now. The doors opened to a private level lit by soft overhead lights. A single car waited, sleek, silent, matte black. He gestured for me to get in, but I stood my ground. You keep saying this isn't my fault, I said. Then why does it feel like I'm the one being smuggled out of a spy movie? A small smile ghosted across his face. Because spy movies always exaggerate the lighting. It should have been a joke. It almost worked. When we drove out into the night, the rain had stopped, leaving the streets slick and empty. Marco's phone vibrated on the console. He ignored it. You're not going to answer? I asked. Not yet. The people I trust are already working. The way he said the people I trust made me wonder how many there were and what it cost to earn that place. Where are we going? Somewhere safer. Define safer. A place where I can see who's watching. We ended up on the upper floor of a riverside hotel, the kind that hides luxury behind understatement. The suite overlooked the city like an observation post. When the door closed behind us, the silence felt strange, heavy. Sit, he said gently. You need a minute. I didn't argue. My legs were shaking. He poured 2 glasses of water and handed me one. Drink. You're pale. You're very good at giving orders. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. It's the only way people listen in my world. I'm not in your world. Not willingly, he agreed. But until this is over, it's safer to pretend you are. I looked down at the glass in my hands, the condensation running over my fingers. What happens when it is over? He didn't answer immediately. Then you get your life back. His certainty should have reassured me. Instead, it scared me because I wasn't sure which part of my old life I still wanted. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance. I moved to the window. The city shimmered below, restless and bright. You can't watch me forever, I said. Not forever, he admitted. Just until I'm sure you'll wake up tomorrow without someone waiting outside your door. I turned to face him. Why risk this much for me? I'm just... Don't finish that sentence, he said quietly. You're not just anything. The words hit harder than I expected. For a moment, the tension in the room shifted, less fear, more gravity. Before either of us could speak, his phone vibrated again, urgent this time. He answered, switching to speaker. A man's voice crackled through the line. We traced the message. It came from an encrypted domain, routed through 3 shell accounts. The signature matches Victor Dallin. Marco's jaw tightened. He's back in New York? Looks like it. He wants something. Of course he does. Marco's eyes flicked to me. Keep him off the radar until I say otherwise. Understood. The call ended. Who's Victor? I asked. An opportunist who thinks leverage is love, he said flatly. He used to work for my family before he started selling pieces of it to anyone with cash. And he wants me? He wants what I'll give up to keep you safe. A silence stretched between us. Then I said, so I'm the bait again. Not this time. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. This time we use him. How? By making him believe you're running scared. He'll surface to collect what he thinks is his prize. That's your plan? Use me to draw him out. To protect you by ending this. The conviction in his tone made the argument useless. Still, my heart pounded. What if it goes wrong? Then it's my life on the line, not yours. He said it as a statement of fact, not a declaration of bravery. That scared me even more. I sank into the armchair by the window. You can't keep trading yourself for other people. He looked at me with something almost like surprise. That's not a lesson most people try to teach me. I'm not most people. No, he said softly. You're not. Outside, lightning flashed over the river, throwing his reflection across the glass, tall, composed, and very alone. I wondered how many nights he'd spent like this, waiting for danger to knock. He turned back to me. There's a spare room down the hall. You should rest. You're not sleeping? I have calls to make. I hesitated, then said, Promise me something. He raised an eyebrow. Promise you'll wake me if anything happens. A flicker of warmth touched his expression. You have my word. I believed him. Against reason, against logic, I believed him. In the guest room, the sheets had a faint scent of cedar and clean linen. I lay awake listening to the muted rhythm of his voice in the other room. Every few minutes it dropped low, then rose again, commands, confirmations, plans. At some point, exhaustion won. When I woke, the suite was dim, lit only by the city's glow seeping through half-closed curtains. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown number. Did you think he could really protect you? My breath caught. Another message followed. Look outside. I crept to the window. Across the street, a figure stood on the rooftop opposite the hotel, motionless, watching. A red laser point flickered once on the glass beside me, then vanished. My heart slammed against my ribs. Marco. He was already there, gunmetal phone in one hand, expression cold and controlled. Get back. I stepped away from the window, every muscle tight with adrenaline. It's a warning, he said after a moment. If they wanted you hurt, they'd have tried already. That's supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand the rules. He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. They're showing us how close they can get. And now what? He looked toward the window, eyes narrowing. Now we show them they've already gone too far. The night after the laser sight incident stretched into a sleepless blur. Marco stayed by the window, phone pressed to his ear, giving clipped instructions in a language I didn't know. Every so often, he paused, listening, jaw tight, the blue light from outside tracing sharp angles across his face. When he finally spoke to me, his voice had softened back into English. They're moving. The person who sent that message left the rooftop an hour ago. My people are following. Your people, I repeated. Do you have an army somewhere I don't know about? Not an army, he said. Just a few who still believe in doing things the right way. I almost laughed. The right way. He met my gaze. Protecting the innocent still counts as right. The words lingered after he turned away. I didn't feel innocent anymore. Just caught between fear of what followed us and the strange calm that came from being near him. By morning, the suite felt too small for all the unspoken questions. I found him sitting on the couch, still dressed from the night before, a tablet in his lap. On the screen, photos, grainy, zoomed shots of men I didn't recognize. They were at your office yesterday, he said without preamble. The same group that tried to corner you on Lexington. How do you even get these? I have friends who watch cameras before the police do. He turned the screen so I could see. One image showed a man with a familiar scar along his jaw. The driver from before. My stomach twisted. He's the one who... Yes. He works for Victor now. Which means Victor's escalating. What does he want? Information, money, maybe revenge. But what he really wants is to remind me he can reach anywhere. So he sends threats through me. His eyes softened. I won't let him keep using you. The conviction in his voice made me shiver. How? By taking away his advantage. He tapped the tablet again. A map appeared, with lines of red and blue tracing routes across the city. He's been moving product through a front company. If we shut it down publicly, he loses the power to hide. He'll have to come out himself. You're talking about baiting him again. This time I'm the bait, he said simply. You're the witness who stays out of sight. I wanted to argue, but he looked so sure, so controlled, that my words felt useless. Instead, I asked the only thing that mattered. And if something happens to you? He smiled faintly. Then you run. But it won't. He handed me an envelope, plain, heavy. Inside are keys, cash, and a name. If I tell you to disappear, go to that person. He'll know what to do. I took it, the weight of it cold in my hands. You planned this already. I plan for everything, he said. It's the only way to survive in my world. For a moment, silence stretched between us. The hum of the city filtered through the glass, distant sirens, a ferry horn echoing downriver. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a small black phone. You'll keep this one. It connects only to me. No apps, no tracing. If you need me, press 1. Marco, this is starting to sound like witness protection. He didn't smile. That's not far from the truth. Later that afternoon, he left for his meeting somewhere neutral, he said. I stayed behind with a security detail in the suite next door. The waiting was worse than fear. It was silence pretending to be safety. To distract myself, I opened the balcony door. The city smelled of ozone and river water. Somewhere below, traffic hummed, a reminder that life went on for everyone else. I wondered how many people down there walked past danger every day without noticing. A knock startled me. One of Marco's men stood in the doorway, earpiece glinting. Mr. Romano asked that you keep the curtains drawn tonight. Romano. So that was his real last name. I thought he was coming back. He will, the guard said. When it's done. When it's done. The phrase sounded final. Hours passed. The sky deepened ink. I paced until my reflection in the dark glass began to look like another person entirely. Then my phone, the black one, buzzed. Marco, are you alone? Elena, yes. What's happening? Marco, Victor's here. Keep your phone nearby. Don't answer the door unless it's me. I typed back, you said the meeting was neutral. Marco, he changed the rules. My hand shook. I stared at the tiny blinking cursor until another message came. Marco, whatever you hear, stay put. Promise me. I sent back a single word. Promise. 10 minutes crawled by. Then 15. The city outside glowed in streaks of red and gold. Somewhere far below, a siren wailed and faded. When the door finally opened, I flinched, but it was Marco, his coat damp, a cut along his temple. Are you hurt? I rushed forward. Not badly, he said, wiping blood from his eyebrow. It's over for tonight. What happened? He came with an offer, money to step aside, threats if I refused. Typical Victor. I gave him a counteroffer. Which was proof I know where his accounts are hidden. He'll run for a while. That gives us time. He sat heavily on the couch, exhaustion flickering behind his composure. I brought a towel from the bathroom. When I handed it to him, his fingers brushed mine. The contact jolted through me. You shouldn't be here, he said quietly. This isn't your world. Too late, I replied. You pulled me into it the moment you caught me on that sidewalk. For the first time, he laughed, a rough, tired sound that made something inside me loosen. Maybe, or maybe fate did. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment, and I saw the weight he carried, the fatigue of someone always 10 seconds from danger. Without thinking, I sat beside him. The city's lights painted his face in gold and shadow. Will he come back? I asked. Yes, he said. Men like Victor always do. But next time, I'll be ready. And until then? His gaze met mine, steady now. Until then, you stay where the light is strongest. The phrase from the white tulip card. Was that you? I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. I wanted to warn you without frightening you. I failed at both. No, I said softly. You succeeded at one. Which? Making sure I couldn't stop thinking about you. The words slipped out before I could stop them. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then he reached up, brushed a loose strand of hair from my face, and said, That's a dangerous habit, Elena. Maybe, I said. But danger seems to find me anyway. He smiled, the faintest curve of relief in it. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we plan. When I finally lay down, I could still hear him pacing in the next room, a low voice murmuring into his phone. Every so often, the rhythm paused, and I wondered if he was listening for me the same way I was listening for him. Sleep came slowly, threaded with city sounds and the echo of his words, stay where the light is strongest. I didn't yet understand what he meant. but I would. Morning came gray and restless. The first sound I heard was the faint buzz of Marco's phone vibrating across the glass table. He was already awake, standing by the window in a fresh shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Bad news?" I asked, still groggy. He didn't turn. "News. It's always bad when it comes this early." He gestured toward the skyline, where low clouds were pressing against the buildings like smoke. "Victor's people moved again last night. 2 of my warehouses were raided. Not by police, by someone pretending to be them." "Are you saying they're inside your network? Or just close enough to mimic it?" He exhaled, shoulders tight. "They want me unstable. It's working." I stepped closer. "Then let me help." He turned finally, eyes tired but sharp. "You already are. Every time they fail to reach you, they make mistakes. They get reckless." "That's not helping, that's existing," I said. "Existing is the hardest part," he replied. His phone buzzed again, and this time he answered. "Talk." The conversation was brief and rapid, full of numbers and names I didn't recognize. When he hung up, he said, "They're demanding a meeting tonight." "Then don't go," I said instantly. "I have to. If I don't, they'll pick another target." "Who?" He hesitated. "One of my men has a family. 2 kids. Victor knows their address." The implication hit like a punch. "He's using them to draw you out." "Yes. And you're going to let him." "I'm going to control the letting." The way he said it made no sense and perfect sense at the same time. He crossed to the sideboard, opened a drawer, and took out a small metal object. For a second, I thought it was a weapon, but it was a key, old-fashioned, ornate. "This opens a safe house uptown. If something goes wrong tonight, you go there. Wait until you hear from me or Giovanni. No one else." I stared at the key. "You're really expecting something to go wrong?" "I expect everything to go wrong. That way, when it doesn't, I can be pleasantly surprised." Despite the grim words, I almost smiled. He noticed, and a flicker of warmth crossed his face. "You laugh at strange times," he said. "Only when I'm terrified," I admitted. "Then you'll fit right in." The day moved in uneasy silence. Security changed every few hours, with new men rotating through the suite, exchanging discreet nods. I tried reading, listening to music, and even stared at the river long enough to convince myself it was peaceful. But my mind kept circling back to one question. How many times had Marco lived through nights like this, balancing life, loyalty, and loss like pieces on a scale that never stayed even? By dusk, the tension in the air was a living thing. Marco adjusted his cufflinks, much like a soldier checking his armor. "Where are you meeting him?" I asked. "An old shipyard on the East River. Neutral ground." "There's no such thing as neutral anymore," I said. He smiled faintly. "You're learning." When he left, the suite felt hollow. The guard stationed outside nodded politely, but the silence pressed in on them. I turned on the television for noise. Static. Every channel showed weather alerts for a storm rolling in, appropriate, I thought. Hours passed. Rain began to hammer the windows, lightning splintering the sky. Then the black phone vibrated. "Marco, are you at the hotel?" "Elena, yes." "What's happening?" "Marco, meeting's begun. Don't leave your room, no matter what you hear." Something in the phrasing made my stomach twist. "No matter what you hear." I typed back, "Please be careful." No reply. I sat on the couch, eyes fixed on the window. Thunder rolled. And then a sound from the hall. A single, deliberate knock. My heart lurched. "Who is it?" "Room service." But I hadn't ordered anything. I moved closer to the door, keeping my voice steady. "Who sent it?" "Mr. Romano," the voice said. Male, calm. "He wanted to be sure you ate." That could have been true. Marco thought of everything. Still, something was off. I checked the peephole. The hallway looked empty except for a tray waiting on the floor, silver lid gleaming. When I cracked the door open an inch, the tray shifted slightly, like someone had just stepped back out of view. Instinct screamed. I shut the door, bolting it. The phone buzzed again, this time with a different number. "Unknown caller. You shouldn't ignore hospitality." I froze. Then another message. "He's not coming back this time." I typed fast, hands shaking. "Who is this?" No response. Then, slowly, the screen filled with a photo. It was the dockyard. Rain blurring the lights. Two figures facing each other, one of them unmistakably Marco. Before fear could finish its thought, the phone lit again with his number. Marco, Elena, stay where you are. Someone's trying to trace your location through fake deliveries. I'm fine. Do not open the door. I exhaled shakily, leaning against the wall. You have the worst timing, I whispered to the phone. Talking to yourself again? The voice made me jump. Giovanni stood in the open connecting door from the suite next door, rain dripping from his coat. Marco sent me, he said quickly. He asked that I bring you downstairs. We're moving locations. It's safer. Now. Everything about him looked authentic. The same careful politeness, the earpiece, the badge on his lapel. But a sliver of doubt cut through me. How do I know Marco really sent you? He frowned slightly, as if offended. Because I work for him. That's not an answer. He sighed. He told me to remind you, stay where the light is strongest. The phrase eased the knot in my chest. I grabbed the envelope and the key Marco had given me, shoved them into my coat pocket, and followed Giovanni out. The elevator ride down was silent except for the hum of machinery. When the doors opened into the lobby, the storm's reflection shimmered across the marble floor. Outside, a black car idled at the curb. Giovanni opened the door for me, scanning the street before ushering me in. Rain streaked the windows as we pulled away from the hotel. Only when the city lights began to thin did the unease return. Where exactly are we going? I asked. To meet Mr. Romano, Giovanni said. Where? He didn't answer right away. I looked out the window. The skyline was fading, replaced by warehouses and cranes. The East River. My pulse quickened. This isn't a safe house. Giovanni's expression didn't change. He asked me to bring you. To the shipyard? Yes. My hand tightened around the small phone in my pocket. Giovanni, if this is a trick. He cut me off gently. Then I'm the wrong person to betray him. He turned toward me then, eyes steady. Trust me just a little longer, Miss Elena. We're almost there. Outside, the rain turned to mist, soft and deceptive. The city's lights disappeared behind us. Ahead, the docks waited in silence. The car slowed as we turned onto a narrow road lined with rusted fences. Beyond them, the docks stretched out like long steel arms reaching into black water. Floodlights glared in intervals, cutting through the mist and throwing fractured shadows across stacks of cargo containers. Giovanni parked near an old warehouse whose windows glowed faintly from inside. Stay in the car, he said, checking his watch. He'll be here in 5 minutes. Marco? He nodded. If anyone else approaches, lock the doors and keep your head down. Before I could ask more, he was out of the car, moving with the silent precision of someone trained to be invisible. The air smelled of rain and salt. My breath fogged the glass as I leaned forward, scanning the maze of metal and concrete for any sign of movement. And then, through the mist, I saw him. Marco emerged from between two shipping containers, coat collar turned up against the wind. Even from a distance, his presence filled the space, composed, deliberate, like a storm moving on its own terms. Another man waited by the warehouse doors, tall, lean, face hidden beneath the brim of a hat. Victor. Their figures stood like mirrored silhouettes, two versions of the same kind of danger. I cracked the car window just enough to hear. Their voices carried faintly through the night. You took something that doesn't belong to you, Marco said, his tone low but edged with steel. And you took someone that doesn't belong to you, Victor replied, his accent sharp. Fair trade, no. My stomach twisted. He means me. Marco didn't move. Elena isn't a trade. She's not a part of this. Victor laughed softly. Everyone's a part of this, my friend. You should know better. The exchange froze me. I'd been a bystander to this world, but now I was its currency. Giovanni appeared from the shadows, speaking briefly into his earpiece. He gave a subtle nod toward Marco, a signal, maybe, that the perimeter was secure. Then, without warning, headlights flared behind us. Another car, dark, sleek, silent, rolled into view and stopped 20 feet away. I shrank lower in the seat. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out holding an umbrella. He wasn't one of Marco's. Even from here, I could feel the wrongness in the way he moved, too relaxed, too confident. Victor smiled when he saw him. You see? I'm not alone either. Marco's hand twitched toward his coat, but Victor raised a palm. Don't. We both know this ends badly if you do. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The wind whistled through the chain-link fences. Water lapped against the dock pylons below. Then Victor said, "You want her safe? Then you'll listen. You have something that belongs to me, files, accounts, the kind of information people would pay a lifetime for. Give it back," and she walks away untouched. Marco's voice was quiet. You already know I don't negotiate with thieves. Then you're a fool, Victor snapped. Because right now, she's the only thing keeping you alive. Giovanni took a step forward, but Marco raised a hand to stop him. His expression didn't change, but his eyes were fire. Touch her, and I'll end this entire city before I let you walk away. The certainty in his voice sent a chill down my spine. Victor's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, then returned. Always the hero, he said. But tell me something, does she know why I'm really here? My pulse skipped. Marco didn't respond. She doesn't, Victor said, almost kindly. You didn't tell her about the message. Marco's silence was an answer. What message? I whispered to myself, pressing closer to the glass. Victor turned slightly, his voice rising just enough to carry across the distance. She was never random, Marco. You think fate threw her into your path? No. I did. She was supposed to be leverage, not a complication. My breath caught. What? Marco took one measured step forward. You're lying. Am I? Victor tilted his head. Ask yourself, how did she end up there that night on that street, at that exact moment? Because I made sure she would. The words slammed into me like a wave. The crowded street, the coffee spilling, his hand catching my arm. It had felt accidental, cinematic, destined. Now it sounded orchestrated. No, Marco said. You didn't plan that. I did, Victor said simply. But you made it interesting. You fell for her. That wasn't supposed to happen. The silence that followed was unbearable. Marco's jaw clenched. If you're lying, I'm not lying, Victor said. And you know it. You checked her background, didn't you? Everything about her was too clean. No connections, no ties, a perfect ghost in the city. Why do you think that was? The realization hit me all at once. He had me followed. Researched. Protected. Not because he'd fallen for me at first sight, but because he was verifying a setup. The world tilted sideways. Victor smiled like a man who had already won. Now, be sensible. Give me what's mine, and you both walk away. Otherwise. He nodded toward the car that had followed him. The driver opened the door wider, revealing another figure inside. I couldn't see clearly through the rain, but I recognized the shape, a woman, bound, her head turned toward the light. Marco froze. Victor's voice softened, almost tender. She was one of yours, wasn't she? The one with the kids. Giovanni's hand twitched toward his weapon, but Marco's expression didn't change. It was colder than I'd ever seen it. You've made your choice, he said quietly. And then the floodlights cut out. Darkness swallowed everything. Gunfire cracked once, twice, sharp and close. I ducked instinctively, heart hammering. Through the chaos, I heard Marco shout something in Italian, and then the sound of engines roaring to life. The car door beside me yanked open. A rough hand grabbed my arm. Elena, move. Marco's voice. I couldn't see him, but I recognized the command in his tone. I stumbled out into the rain, following the tug of his hand through blinding darkness. He pushed me behind a container just as another shot split the air. Metal sparked inches from my shoulder. Stay down, he ordered. What's happening? I gasped. Victor double-crossed his own men. He's trying to vanish in the confusion. And the others? Handled, he said grimly. Sirens wailed in the distance, real ones this time. The storm's light flickered over the water, revealing flashes of movement, silhouettes scattering, headlights vanishing down side streets. Marco crouched beside me, breathing hard. Rain streamed down his face, turning the blood at his temple into faint streaks. You all right? I think so. Good. He looked back toward the docks, where Victor's car had been seconds ago. Gone. Giovanni reappeared, soaked and limping slightly. He escaped. Marco's eyes narrowed. No. He's still playing. He wouldn't leave without finishing the game. He turned to me. We need to move. Now. Where? Somewhere. He can't script the next move. As he guided me toward the car, lightning illuminated his face, hard, determined, but underneath it all, something raw. For the first time since I met him, Marco looked unsure. The drive away from the docks felt endless. The rain had softened to mist, but every shadow outside the car window still looked like a pursuit. Marco said nothing. His jaw was set, eyes fixed on the road as though staring too long at anything else might make it disappear. Giovanni sat in the passenger seat, speaking quietly into his earpiece, the faint static of radio chatter filling the silence. I sat in the back, clutching the edge of the seat, the words from the docks replaying in my head. You think fate threw her into your path? No. I did. When we finally pulled into an underground garage, Marco killed the engine and sat back, hands still gripping the wheel. Inside, he said to Giovanni, "Secure the floor." Giovanni nodded and left the car. Only when the echo of his footsteps faded did I speak. Was it true? Marco didn't look at me. What? You know what? What Victor said. He exhaled through his nose, still staring ahead. He lies for a living. That's not an answer. Silence stretched between us. I leaned forward, voice shaking. Did you know who I was before that night? Finally, he turned. The expression on his face wasn't guilt, it was calculation, trying and failing to become honesty. I knew your name, he said quietly. That's all. My pulse thudded in my throat. You knew my name? From where? Victor had a list. People he'd flagged for leverage. I didn't know what that meant until later. When I saw you on the street, I recognized the name but not the reason. Then you spilled coffee on me, and he stopped, a humorless smile touching his mouth. And suddenly, everything changed. So it wasn't an accident. He met my eyes. The bump, yes. The rest, no. I sank back against the seat, the air suddenly too thin. You let me believe. I didn't let you believe anything. I didn't even know what to believe myself. I laughed bitterly. That's convenient. He leaned closer, voice low and steady. If I'd told you the truth, you'd have run. And if you'd run, Victor would have found you before I could stop him. You think I didn't want to tell you? You think I haven't replayed that night 1,000 times, wishing I had? The words hit like bullets, not because of what he said, but because of how real they sounded. Then why tell me now? I asked. Because lies have a shelf life, he said. And we're past the expiration date. He opened the car door and stepped out. For a moment, I stayed where I was, gripping the envelope still tucked in my coat pocket. The one he'd given me in case everything went wrong. Maybe this was that moment. When I followed him inside, we were in what looked like a converted penthouse, open floor plan, panoramic view of the river, but bare of furniture except for a leather couch and a table with maps spread across it. Screens flickered on one wall, showing live feeds from security cameras. This is one of your safe houses? I asked. One of them, he said, setting his gun on the table and unbuttoning his coat. We won't stay long. Because Victor knows about it? Because I don't want him to. I walked toward the windows. The storm had finally broken, and the city below washed clean and gleaming under moonlight. You should have told me sooner, I said. I know. The simplicity of the admission startled me more than any excuse would have. He joined me by the glass, close enough that I could feel the warmth from his body through my jacket. You weren't supposed to be in this, he said. I thought I could keep you separate. But Victor doesn't believe in separation. And now? Now he's desperate. Desperate men make mistakes. And what about you? His reflection in the glass turned toward mine. I don't get the luxury of desperation. I faced him fully then, searching his eyes. Why are you really doing this? Protecting me, fighting him, risking everything? Don't say it's a strategy. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, quietly, because I lost someone once. She was innocent. Like you. I swore it wouldn't happen again. The confession landed like a stone dropped into still water. Who? I asked softly. My sister, he said. She got caught in a crossfire that wasn't hers. Victor called it collateral damage. The pain in his voice was sharp enough to cut the air. That's why you built this empire, I said slowly. To control the chaos. To survive it, he corrected. And to make sure people like him can't decide who lives and who dies. I didn't know what to say. So I reached out, almost without thinking, and touched his hand. His fingers didn't move at first, then they turned slightly, linking with mine. For a heartbeat, the noise of the city faded. It was just the two of us, standing in the glow of something that shouldn't exist between enemies. Then Giovanni's voice crackled through the intercom. Sir, you need to see this. Marco dropped my hand and crossed the room, hitting a button on the console. One of the screens switched feeds to a live image of Victor. He was standing outside another building, laughing, phone to his ear. Marco's voice dropped to ice. He's taunting us. The audio clicked in, faint but clear. Tell your boss, Victor was saying to someone off camera, that if he wants to keep pretending he can protect her, he should check his doorstep. The feed zoomed slightly, and my stomach turned. The building behind Victor was familiar. My apartment, I whispered. Marco froze. How long ago was this recorded? Giovanni checked the timestamp. 3 minutes. I felt the blood drain from my face. He's there now. Marco grabbed his coat. Lock down the building. Giovanni, get the car ready. He turned to me. We end this tonight. How? By showing him I'm not the one being hunted. He was already in motion, decisive and unstoppable. I followed, fear and adrenaline burning together in my chest. Outside, the city roared back to life, headlights streaking across wet asphalt, sirens echoing somewhere far away. As we climbed into the car, I realized that the man beside me wasn't just fighting for control, he was fighting for redemption. And whether I liked it or not, I was now part of his redemption story. The city blurred past the windows in streaks of white and red. Marco drove like a man who knew every shortcut by heart, weaving through traffic with quiet precision. Beside him, Giovanni relayed updates through the earpiece, short, coded phrases that sounded like another language of war. I sat in the back seat, fingers clenched around the key Marco had given me days earlier. The weight of it felt heavier now, as though the future it represented was bending under its own gravity. Are you sure he's still there? I asked. Marco nodded once. His car's parked 2 blocks from your building. He wants to be seen. What if it's a trap? It's always a trap, he said. The trick is deciding whose it is. When we turned onto my street, my heart dropped. The building loomed ahead, ordinary, quiet, lights glowing faintly in the windows. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, which somehow made it worse. Giovanni checked the street before signaling. 1 man outside, pretending to smoke. 2 more across the road. Observers, Marco murmured. He's waiting for me to step out. What are you going to do? I asked. Make him think he's already won. He parked half a block away. Giovanni handed him a small device the size of a lighter. Signal jammers ready. Marco turned to me. Stay in the car. No matter what happens. I reached for his arm. You said that before. I'm tired of waiting in rooms and cars while you fight the ghosts. This one's not a ghost, he said. It's a man who's about to run out of options. He stepped out into the drizzle, walking toward the building with a confident stride. From the back seat, I could see the smoker straighten slightly, dropping the act. The other 2 across the street shifted, hands brushing their jackets. Then Marco did something strange. He put his hands in his coat pockets and looked up at my apartment window, as if casually checking the view. A moment later, the smoker touched his earpiece. Giovanni cursed under his breath. They're calling Victor. Shouldn't we help him? I asked. Helping him too soon ruins the plan. What plan? The one he didn't tell anyone, Giovanni said grimly. Before I could ask more, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Such loyalty. Victor's voice drawled on the other end. You're watching him, aren't you? He's good theater. Where are you? I demanded. Close enough to appreciate the view. Tell me, did he ever tell you what's really on that flash drive he keeps hunting? I froze. Flash drive. The one your boyfriend stole before he learned the price of curiosity. Victor's tone darkened. It's not money he's protecting, my dear. It's names. Families. The entire structure of his empire. With it, anyone could own his world. I looked out the window, heart pounding. Why tell me this? Because I like balance. You should know who you're choosing. The line went dead. Outside, Marco had reached the front steps. He paused, glanced toward the man across the street, and smiled. Not friendly, not smug, just knowing. Then he took out his phone, typed something, and slipped it into his pocket. Giovanni's earpiece crackled. He listened, then grinned. That was the signal. Signal for what? For the building's lights to go out. And they did suddenly, completely. Every window on the block went black. For a split second, confusion rippled through Victor's men. Then Marco moved. Not running, not hiding, walking straight toward the smoker. A blur of movement, the faint sound of struggle, and the man was down. Giovanni started the car. We move now. He pulled forward, headlights off. Marco appeared from the shadows and yanked open the rear door, sliding in beside me. Rain streaked his hair, his coat was damp, but his expression calm. What did he say to you? He asked. I hesitated. He called. He said the flash drive isn't about money, it's about your people. That whoever holds it controls you. Marco's jaw tightened. He's not wrong. That drive is everything I've built and everyone I've protected. If he gets it, no one is safe. Then why not destroy it? Because destroying it means erasing proof of what he's done. I need it to end him. The way he said it, quiet, controlled, was more chilling than anger could ever be. Giovanni turned down a narrow alley, stopping beneath an overpass. We'll switch cars here. The decoy team's 2 minutes behind. Marco leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. He wanted you to hear that story, he said. To make you doubt me. Did it work? I asked softly. He looked at me then, eyes dark and unflinching. If you're asking whether everything I've done was for control, no. But if you're asking whether I've done terrible things to keep people safe, yes. I don't want easy answers, I said. I just want the truth. Then here it is, he said. That night we met, I saw you and thought you were part of his plan. Then you smiled at me like the world wasn't burning, and I forgot what I was supposed to do. That mistake changed everything. It wasn't a confession of love, it was something heavier. A surrender of armor. The car behind us flashed its headlights once. Giovanni nodded and got out to meet them. Marco turned back to me. He's not done. Victor wants you to be afraid enough to run. That's how he wins. Then what do? We stop running. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small flash drive, sleek, silver, unmarked. He doesn't know this is the real one, he said. He's been chasing a decoy. Then it's over, I said. Not yet. There's still one name on this drive he doesn't want me to see. Who? He hesitated. The person who gave him access to my systems. You mean there's a traitor in your circle? He nodded slowly. Someone close. Too close. I thought back to Giovanni's controlled tone, the way he always appeared before things went wrong, the faint tension between them. Do you know who? I have a guess, he said quietly. Before I could ask, the car door opened again. Giovanni leaned in. Safe route's clear. But we need to move now. Marco slid the flash drive into his inner pocket and gave a short nod. Then we finish this. As we pulled away from the overpass, the city opened ahead of us, wet streets reflecting 1,000 fractured lights. Somewhere in that maze, Victor was waiting. But for the first time since it began, I didn't feel like a pawn. I felt like a piece finally ready to move. And whatever came next, I wasn't sitting it out. The rain had turned into a fine mist that blurred the edges of the city, as if the skyline itself wanted to disappear. The new car glided through the slick streets, unmarked, forgettable. Marco sat in silence beside me, his profile sharp against the glow of passing streetlights. Giovanni drove ahead in another vehicle, supposedly clearing the path. I couldn't stop watching Marco's reflection in the window. He looked carved from quiet fury, every breath measured. Whatever name was on that flash drive had changed something in him. You think it's Giovanni, don't you? I asked softly. His gaze flicked toward me. What makes you say that? The way you looked at him. The way he's been, careful. Too careful. Marco didn't answer immediately. He rubbed a thumb across the scar on his wrist, a tell I'd learned to recognize as him thinking. Giovanni's been with me for 10 years. He's saved my life more than once. But lately, he's been one step ahead of everything, even things I never told him. That could mean he's just good at his job. Or that he's good at someone else's. The words hung heavy between us. The car turned onto a quieter street lined with warehouses and half-lit offices. Marco's men followed at a distance, shadows inside black SUVs. It should have made me feel safe, but instead I felt exposed, as if the world had narrowed to this single point of uncertainty. What happens if you're right? I asked. If it's him, then I do what has to be done. There was no anger in his voice, just a sad inevitability that frightened me more than rage could have. He pulled a small tablet from his coat, plugged in the flash drive, and entered a code. Lines of data filled the screen, a maze of names, accounts, and encrypted coordinates. My eyes caught one line highlighted in red, internal leak, confirmed, level 1 access. He tapped it. The next screen revealed a single name. Giovanni Russo. Marco exhaled slowly, like someone absorbing the final confirmation of a suspicion they'd prayed was wrong. Marco, I started, but he cut me off with a gesture. Don't, he said quietly. Not yet. The car slowed. He motioned for the driver to pull over beside a shuttered cafe. Outside, the city noise faded into the soft hiss of rain. He stared at the screen for another moment, then shut the tablet and slipped it back into his coat. Where's Giovanni now? I asked. He's meeting us at the docks, Marco said. That's where Victor's men were supposed to make their next move. Fitting, isn't it? He'll walk into the same place he planned to sell me out. What are you going to do? I'm going to give him a chance to tell the truth. The way he said it, calm, almost compassionate, made my chest tighten. We arrived at the docks an hour later. The rain had eased to a drizzle, but the fog had thickened, rolling in off the river in ghostly waves. Floodlights cast long, shifting shadows across the pier. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn moaned like a warning. Marco stepped out first, scanning the area. Stay close, he said. I followed, my shoes clicking softly against the wet boards. The smell of salt and diesel filled the air. Giovanni was waiting by one of the storage containers, a cigarette glowing faintly between his fingers. His posture was relaxed, almost casual, but his eyes were sharp. You came alone? He asked. For now, Marco replied. Where's Victor? Gone, Giovanni said, flicking ash into the puddle. Word is he's leaving the city tonight. You might have scared him more than you thought. Or you warned him, Marco said. The faintest flicker crossed Giovanni's expression, gone so fast I might have imagined it. What are you talking about? Marco reached into his coat and pulled out the tablet. He held it up, screen glowing cold blue. You tell me. Giovanni's joy tightened. You shouldn't believe everything you read. I don't, Marco said. I believe what people show me. Giovanni laughed, but there was no humor in it. After everything I've done for you? You think I'd betray you for that snake? I think loyalty means nothing if it's bought, Marco said quietly. And Victor pays well. Giovanni's voice hardened. You've changed, Marco. The moment she arrived, you began making mistakes. Thinking with your heart instead of your head. He glanced at me then, disdain curling his lip. She's the reason you're slipping. I stepped forward before I could stop myself. You're wrong. He's not slipping, he's waking up. Maybe for the first time. Giovanni's eyes narrowed. You should have stayed out of this. And you should have stayed loyal, Marco said. The silence that followed was heavy charged. Giovanni dropped the cigarette, crushing it under his heel. Then, slowly, he reached inside his jacket. Marco didn't flinch. He simply said, don't. Giovanni froze, then sighed, pulling out not a weapon, but a small flash drive. Identical to the one Marco carried. I wasn't selling you out, Giovanni said. I was saving us. Victor's reach is deeper than you know. He already owns half your council. The drive you have, it's compromised. The real one is here. Marco's expression didn't change, but I could feel the tension in the air crack like invisible lightning. Prove it. Giovanni tossed the drive to him. Plug it in. Marco caught it, studying it for a moment before slipping it into the tablet. Data filled the screen again, Different this time, cleaner, structured. Dozens of hidden accounts, coded transactions, and one line blinking red. Asset transfer. Elena D'Angelo. My breath caught. What is that? I asked. Giovanni's gaze flicked toward me. Insurance. Victor made a deal with your family years ago. You were promised his network if anything went wrong. What? My voice broke. That's not possible. Marco's head snapped toward Giovanni. You're lying. Am I? Giovanni said. You think she bumped into you by accident? You think any of this was a chance? The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. Marco's voice was low, dangerous. You're saying she was part of this from the start. I'm saying she was supposed to be. Maybe she didn't know. Maybe she did. I shook my head, tears burning hot. I didn't know. Marco, I swear. He didn't answer right away. The fog pressed in around us, the river whispering secrets only it could keep. Finally, he said, then it seems Victor's web is larger than I imagined. He turned back to Giovanni. But it still doesn't excuse you. Giovanni's mouth opened as if to argue, but Marco's men emerged from the mist, surrounding him in silence. He didn't resist. You should have trusted me, Marco said softly. We could have ended this together. Giovanni looked past him, straight at me. You still can. But when you find out who you really are, don't say I didn't warn you. Marco's jaw clenched. Take him. As Giovanni was led away, the fog swallowed his last words. But they stayed with me, echoing like a warning bell I couldn't unhear. And for the first time, I wondered what part of this story had really been mine to begin with. The fog hadn't lifted by morning, it just traded silver darkness for gray light. From the terrace, the river looked like liquid steel, calm on the surface, but moving fast underneath, a mirror for the way my thoughts churned. Inside the study, Marco was on the phone, voice low and sharp, issuing orders I couldn't quite hear. Every few seconds, his gaze flicked toward me, as if checking that I hadn't disappeared. When he finally hung up, the silence stretched. Giovanni's being transferred to a safe location, he said. He'll talk. Eventually. What if he was telling the truth? I asked. He froze mid-stride. About which part? About me. The word asset felt like glass in my mouth. If my name really was in those files, it means Victor knew who I was long before last night. That doesn't happen by accident. Marco's expression softened just enough to betray fatigue. You're not property, Elena. I don't care what some document says. But my family. He crossed the room before I could finish, resting his hands on the desk between us. Whatever deal they made, it ends now. I'll make sure of it. The quiet authority in his tone should have comforted me, yet something about it terrified me. You can't fix this with threats, Marco. This isn't your world anymore. He gave a humorless laugh. It's the only world that listens when I speak. The room felt smaller. Outside, gulls screamed over the river, impatient, hungry. Tell me about the file, I said. Everything. Marco hesitated, then turned the tablet toward me. The page still glowed with the words asset transfer, Elena D'Angelo, followed by coordinates and a date, 12 years ago. Below it, a signature I recognized instantly, my father's. No, I whispered. He was deep in debt, Marco said quietly. Victor lent him money when no one else would. To secure it, he signed over collateral. Me. He didn't answer, but he didn't have to. I sank into the chair, staring at the looping script of my father's name. My childhood flashed through me in fragments, whispered phone calls, sudden moves, envelopes that arrived with no return address. I'd always thought he was unlucky in business. Now I saw the pattern for what it was, a survival mechanism. I was 10, I said. He promised me New York would be a fresh start. It was, Marco said. Until Victor decided to collect. How did you end up involved? Giovanni introduced me to Victor's circle years ago. I thought I could learn from them, build something legitimate. By the time I realized what they really were, it was too late to walk away. He rubbed his temples. When I saw your name in those files, I understood why Victor wanted you found. But I didn't know he'd send men to take you until that night at the cafe. So that's why you were there? He nodded. To intercept them. To make sure you never even saw their faces. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the mantel clock. Finally, I asked, and now? What happens to him? Victor? Marco's eyes hardened. He'll run. But not far enough. A shiver slid down my spine. You can't go after him alone. I don't plan to, but he has to believe I will. He turned away, pulling on his jacket. I reached out instinctively, catching his sleeve. Marco, wait. You keep saying you'll protect me, but maybe it's the other way around now. If he's using me as leverage, you're his real target. He smiled faintly, a flash of warmth that almost disguised the sadness underneath. That's the first time you've admitted we're on the same side. Maybe because for the first time, I believe it. He covered my hand with his. Stay here. If anything happens, take the back staircase to the garage. Giovanni's replacement will drive you to the airstrip. Replacement? A man I trust. He hesitated, then added, more than most. That should have reassured me. It didn't. When the door closed behind him, the silence that followed was different, not peaceful, but watchful. I paced the length of the room, trying to convince myself that the security cameras were the only eyes on me. Yet the prickling at the back of my neck said otherwise. I went to the desk and picked up the tablet again, scrolling through the decrypted files. Beneath my own name were two more, Adrian D'Angelo and Marco DeLuca, pending transfer. Pending. My breath caught. The entry had a date, today. The realization hit like cold water. Victor hadn't just bought my family's debt, he'd been buying futures. Mine. Marco's. Maybe Giovanni's too. The entire web of loyalty and betrayal is reduced to contracts and timestamps. A soft chime echoed from the hallway. One of the security sensors tripped. I moved to the window. A black sedan was idling just beyond the gate. Too early for Marco to be back, too still to be friendly. I grabbed the phone from the desk and hit the intercom. Elena to gate control. Identify that car. Static. Then a male voice I didn't recognize. Signal jammed. Step away from the window. The line went dead. My pulse hammered. I backed toward the door, scanning for anything I could use as a weapon, an antique letter opener, the heavy glass paperweight. Useless against whoever was outside. The lights flickered once, then steadied. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Not hurried, but deliberate. Marco? I called. No answer. The footsteps stopped right outside the study. A shadow moved under the door. Before I could decide whether to run or hide, the handle turned slow, deliberate, and the door swung inward. It wasn't Marco. A tall man in a gray coat stepped inside, rain still beating on his shoulders. He looked around the study with mild curiosity, then met my eyes. Miss D'Angelo, he said, his accent unmistakably Eastern European. My employer sends his regards. Victor. He smiled thinly. He prefers to negotiate through intermediaries. My mind raced. If Victor had sent someone here, it meant he already knew Marco was closing in, or that Giovanni had talked faster than expected. What do you want? I managed. He glanced at the tablet on the desk. You have something that belongs to us. A contract. Delete it, and this ends peacefully. And if I don't? His smile didn't change. Then my men outside stopped waiting. He took a step forward. I mirrored him backward until I felt the edge of the desk against my hips. You think you can scare me? I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I don't need to. He raised a small device, a jammer, its red light blinking. Mr. DeLuca can't hear you. Neither can his guards. My fingers brushed the paperweight behind me. Then maybe you should listen instead. Before he could respond, the terrace door burst open with a crack of wind and rain. Marco stood there, drenched, eyes burning. Step away from her. The man in gray turned, startled but not frightened. You're too late, he said. The message has already been sent. Marco drew himself up, every inch of him controlled fury. Then I'll deliver my own. The intruder's calm faltered for the first time. He looked between us, calculating. Then, without another word, he slipped through the terrace door into the fog. For several heartbeats, neither of us moved. Finally, Marco said, he won't get far. He didn't have to, I whispered, showing him the tablet. The new entry blinked at the top of the screen, transfer executed. Marco, I said, voice shaking. Whatever Victor just did, It's already in motion. The words on the screen pulsed like a heartbeat. Transfer executed. Marco snatched the tablet from my hands, scanning the data with a soldier's focus. Lines of code scrolled faster than I could read. He muttered something under his breath in Italian, a curse or a prayer, maybe both. What did he do? I asked. He's not after the money anymore, Marco said, his voice tight. He's after me. He just moved everything I own, every legitimate business, every offshore account, into a shell company under your name. What? He turned the tablet so I could see. Dozens of transactions flickered across the display, each redirecting vast sums of money into a single holding account, E. D'Angelo Trust. Victor just made you the owner of my empire. For a second, I couldn't breathe. Why would he do that? Because he knows I'll do anything to protect you, Marco said. He's betting I'll surrender myself to reverse it. And will you? He looked up from the screen, eyes dark and steady. No, not this time. The thunder outside cracked so sharply it rattled the glass. Marco set the tablet down and crossed to the window, scanning the fog-shrouded gardens. He's trying to smoke me out, he said. If I go to him, I lose everything. If I stay, he comes for you. Then we don't give him a choice, I said. Marco turned, one eyebrow raised. Meaning? Meaning we stop playing defense. It was impulsive, reckless, but the idea had already formed, a spark-catching flame. You said the system he's using needs confirmation from both parties, right? What if we confirm it, but on our terms? Marco studied me for a long moment. You'd have made a dangerous strategist. I've had a good teacher. A faint smile tugged at the corner of his mouth before vanishing. All right, he said, grabbing his phone. We'll need access to the secure terminal at my office. And a distraction big enough to keep his men busy while we reroute his signal. How long do we have? An hour. Maybe less. We left through the back staircase, moving quickly through the maze of corridors until we reached the underground garage. Marco's car, a sleek, low-black coupe, waited with the engine already running. Rain lashed against the windshield as we sped into the city. The streets blurred by in streaks of light and shadow. Despite the urgency, there was a strange calm between us, the kind that comes when fear and purpose balance perfectly. Tell me something, I said quietly. Before this ends. Anything. When you found me that night, the cafe, was it really just protection? He glanced at me, then back at the road. At first. A pause. Then it became something else. Something I wasn't expecting. The honesty in his voice cut through the noise around us. I looked out the window, heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with danger. For what it's worth, I said, it wasn't chance that I bumped into you that day. But it wasn't a plan either. I think maybe it was inevitability. He smiled without looking away from the road. Then let's make sure fate doesn't regret it. When we reached the office tower, it was nearly deserted. The night guard nodded as Marco flashed his credentials, unaware of the storm brewing above him. We took the private elevator to the top floor, the hum of the machinery echoing our racing thoughts. Inside the office, the city spread out like a sea of stars. Marco powered up the main terminal, its glow cutting through the dimness. I stood beside him, the tablet trembling slightly in my hands. All right, he said. Victor's rerouting signal should bounce through 3 proxies. When I connect, he'll think I'm taking the bait. And you'll reverse it? He nodded. We'll rewrite the transfer chain and collapse his entire network in one move. The monitor is filled with code. Marco's fingers flew across the keyboard, every keystroke deliberate. I watched, fascinated and terrified, as lines of encryption unraveled like silk threads. Then another window blinked open. A video feed. Victor's face appeared calm and smiling. Marco, he said, his voice distorted by static. You're late. Marco didn't stop typing. You're overconfident. And you're predictable. Victor's gaze shifted toward me. Miss D'Angelo. I see you've adjusted nicely to your new fortune. Why me? I demanded. Why drag me into this? Because you were already part of it, he said, almost kindly. Your father knew the cost of his debts. I'm simply collecting the interest. You destroyed lives, Marco growled. I built empires, Victor countered. Yours included. Don't forget where your first million came from. The air felt electric, like the moment before lightning strikes. Marco entered the final command, hitting execute without hesitation. Then consider this my last repayment. The monitors flickered. Victor's expression changed for the first time, surprise, then fury, as his signal fractured. The feed dissolved into static. It worked, I breathed. Not yet, Marco said. We need confirmation from both ends. He turned to me. You started this with me. End it. I took the tablet, my hand shaking only slightly, and pressed the confirm button. The screen flared bright white, then faded to black. When the system rebooted, the accounts were gone, emptied, scrubbed, erased from existence. Every trace of Victor's empire and Marco's alike, gone in one digital heartbeat. Everything? I asked. Everything, Marco said quietly. Clean slate. He leaned back, exhaustion flickering in his expression. He can't rebuild fast enough to find us now. His network's crippled. The silence that followed was deafening. The rain had stopped outside, leaving only the soft hum of the city below. So that's it, I said. We win. Marco gave a faint smile. Winning's a temporary condition. But for now, yes. The elevator chimed behind us. For a heartbeat, both of us froze. Then Elena, the housekeeper from the mansion, stepped out, soaked and breathless. The estate, she said. It's gone. His men came while you were here. They found Giovanni. Alive? Marco asked. She nodded. He says Victor fled. East, maybe overseas. Marco exhaled, relief and regret mixing in his voice. Then it's over. He turned to me. You have a choice now, Elena. That file made you the heir to more money than you could ever spend. But none of it's clean. Walk away, and I'll make sure it stays buried. I thought of my father, of debts and promises, of the chain that had pulled both of us into this world. No, I said finally. We walk away together. Start over. Clean slate. He studied me for a moment, as if measuring the truth in my voice. Then he nodded. The dawn was breaking by the time we reached the river again. The city glowed pink and gold, washed clean by the storm. Marco leaned against the railing, the wind tugging at his hair. You know, he said softly, I never believed in fate until you crashed into me that day. I smiled. Maybe fate's just the name we give to the mistakes that lead us somewhere right. He laughed, low and genuine, and for the first time in days, it didn't sound like armor breaking, it sounded like freedom. Behind us, the city continued to breathe, alive and unbroken. Ahead, the river carried away the last traces of night. For now, we were safe. For now, that was enough. The world always feels different after a storm. Streets gleam like mirrors, sky washed clean, and the air holds that rarest of gifts, silence. For the first time in months, I could breathe without waiting for the next disaster to strike. Marco and I didn't go back to the mansion. There was nothing left there but ghosts and memories wrapped in expensive stone. Instead, we checked into a small inn by the Hudson, the kind of place where no one asked names or saw anything they didn't need to. The woman at the desk handed over a single key with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. We were just another tired couple escaping the city for a night, exactly the story we needed her to believe. The room smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Marco opened the window to let in the morning air. Beyond the curtain, the river glimmered, wide and endless. I stood beside him, watching the current carry debris downstream, branches, leaves, the ghosts of things people had tried to hold on to. Feels strange, I said. What does? Peace. He turned, resting an arm against the frame. Don't get used to it. Peace is just the pause between storms. Then I'll take every second of it, I replied. He smiled, faint and wistful. You're braver than you think, Elena. I let the words hang there, soaking in the warmth of them. For all the danger, the lies, the chaos we'd endured, there was still something human in him, something that hadn't been devoured by the world he came from. Hours passed. The innkeeper brought up coffee, and we sat on the balcony with mismatched mugs, the sound of water lapping below. Every so often, Marco's phone buzzed, but he ignored it. Whatever empire he'd had was gone. Maybe that was the point. What happens now? I asked. He looked out toward the horizon. You start over. Whatever you want, new name, new country. I'll make it happen. And you? I'll stay until I'm sure Victor's finished. I frowned. You mean until you find him? His silence was answer enough. I set my mug down. You can't keep chasing ghosts, Marco. You'll end up becoming one. He met my eyes, and for a heartbeat, the weight of everything we'd survived pressed between us, the fear, the trust, the impossible choices. Maybe, he said quietly. But some ghosts deserve to be chased. A knock at the door cut through the moment. Marco tensed instantly. I could almost feel his pulse rise through the air. He motioned for me to stay back, then opened it an inch. The man on the other side wasn't one of Victor's. He was older, wearing a courier's jacket, rain still dripping from his cap. Delivery for Elena D'Angelo, he said, offering a plain envelope. Marco checked it, then handed it to me. From who? The courier just shrugged. Guy paid cash. Said it was personal. He left before we could ask more. The envelope was sealed with red wax, unmarked except for a single initial pressed into it. A. Inside was a folded sheet of thick paper, faintly scented of tobacco and something darker. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate. Elena. If you're reading this, then Victor's gone, or close enough. However, you should know that men like him never work alone. The network survives him, and so do his debts. Your father's name still carries weight in places even Marco doesn't see. When the time comes, you'll have to decide whether to run again or to stand where he couldn't. Until then, trust no one completely, not even the ones who've saved you. A friend of your father. Below the signature was a small symbol I recognized only vaguely. 2 intersecting circles, the mark that had been stamped on the corner of my father's old ledgers, a mark I'd once thought decorative. I looked up at Marco. Do you know what this means? He studied it, brow furrowing. No, but whoever sent it knows more than they should. Could it be Giovanni? He wouldn't use this. He's too direct. So someone else was working with my father, I said slowly. Someone who's still out there. Marco's jaw tightened. Then this isn't over. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Maybe it's not meant to be over. Maybe it's meant to begin again, differently. He smiled at that, but there was a shadow behind it. You always see the story beyond the ending. Maybe because I've lived through too many chapters. We stood there for a long time, listening to the river, each lost in thoughts that refused to quiet. When the sun began to set, Marco turned to me. If you could start anywhere, he asked, where would it be? I thought about it, really thought. Somewhere quiet. Where no one knows our names. Where the biggest secret is the sunrise. He nodded. Then that's where we'll go. And Victor. If he's smart, he'll stay buried. If not, he shrugged lightly. He'll find out ghosts can bite. A laugh escaped me, small, shaky, but real. That's darkly poetic. Occupational hazard, he said. That night, I couldn't sleep. The storm had passed, but my mind wouldn't still. I watched Marco doze in the chair by the window, the faint glow of dawn outlining his face. For the first time, I saw the man beneath the armor, tired, haunted, but still standing. I took the envelope from the nightstand and looked at it one last time before tucking it into my bag. Not as a warning, as a reminder. A reminder that the story wasn't over. Outside, the first light spilled across the Hudson, painting everything in gold. I whispered to the baby I still hadn't told Marco about, "You're safe now." And for the first time, I almost believed it. Because even if the past wasn't finished with us, the future, whatever shape it took, finally felt like something we could write ourselves. The world beyond the river waited, blank and shining, ready for its next chapter.